Hi, David.
Hi, Raina. How are you going?
Good, good.
That's
Always
good.
a pleasure talking to you, David. There's always something new I learn when I speak with yourself. So I'm really excited about today's episode. Um, and I think as a valued partner, I'd love for our listeners to hear more about GPI and
Mm.
yourself and your background.
Yeah,
You could just tell us a little bit about why you're so vested in GPI as a
right.
platform. That'd be great.
Great. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Raina. And I always learn something new from you too, so I always enjoy our interactions and I enjoy all your other podcasts as well that I've seen. I think they're very informative and insightful. And I'd encourage anybody listening to check them out as well in the future. So just tell me a little bit about me. So you can tell by my gray hair that I've been around a while. I didn't get this for free. But one of the benefits that comes with gray hair is that experience, that wealth of knowledge, and so I spent probably the best part of 25 years in the corporate world, mainly in the healthcare industry. And during that time, like everybody, I was charged with at various stages with running sales teams. And one of the challenges we frequently came across was how to identify salespeople that performed, because we couldn't understand how when we did all our own internal recruitment, but when we'd hire somebody, put them through the same training program, everybody got the same training program, everybody got the same recruitment process, everything was process driven, but yet we'd have, some of them would crash and burn after a few months, some would put along for 12 months, and some were just superstars, and we could never really understand that. And about 15 years ago, I was introduced to psychometric testing.
Mm-hmm.
And we used a particular tool, which actually I still use today in some contexts. And it was all about identifying what people like to do in work. So it was based on a lot of science theory. It was also based around a person's learning style and thinking style and how they pick things up. And it was also based around their personality style. And what we discovered was that we got real insights into the types of salespeople we needed. And in one company where we were selling very sort of technical health-related products, dental products to dentists, you really needed to have salespeople who had some insights and interest in the science of dentistry and in the science of healthcare. And those people who had those interests thrived the most. So we went from hiring based on experience to hiring based on fit. It was I suppose for me, it was a real eye opener, because all of a sudden our turnover dropped by something like 30%, and we weren't getting the crash and burns. We still had the odd failure, human beings are complex. But we went from to having really low turnover rates, and sales increased because we got more people that were capable of doing the job, enjoyed the job, and were interested in the job. So all those things came together. And so shortly during that part of my career, around that time, there was an MBO in that company, which I chose not to participate in. But I had really become invested in the world of psychometrics. It fascinated me. So when I left the company, I went and I went and did some more study in the area of executive coaching and did my accreditation in coaching and started my own consultancy in coaching and using assessments. And I used that particular assessment and still do, as I said, for quite a while. But about 7 years ago, I came across Great People Inside. And Great People Inside, one of the things I didn't like about other assessments that were out there was that they were fixed. You couldn't change them and you couldn't alter them in any way, shape, or form. So whatever the company said you were to test, that's what you tested. But what I liked about GPI was that they had a system whereby you could select what you wanted to test. So you could say, look, we want to test if somebody is respectful, and we want to test somebody's reasoning ability. So you could really design that and precisely measure what you wanted to measure. And it was all based on matching the person to the job. And I loved it. And I loved it so much. I flew to Europe and secured the rights for Australia. And that was about 4 years ago. My timing wasn't great because COVID came along. hey, who am I? I'm not Robinson Crusoe, you know. And but look, since COVID has finished, we've really gone from strength to strength, and the system is unique insofar as it's customizable and you can pick the precise elements. And I love it so much. It gives me great insights. I use it in my coaching practice, and I use it. We also work through partners like yourself, and. It's an outstanding. What I like about it is that it's a contemporary sort of tool, you know. And so that's my story about me, in the boring story. And obviously you can tell from my accent, I come from Ireland originally. I'm a proud Irishman as well as a proud Australian. But I have lived here now for nearly 30 years, you know? So this is my home, and but I'll always still be Irish as well.
I like how you've always spoken about GPI, and I think one thing you shared with me in our initial conversations was there's the conventional psych testing and there's GPI, which is psych testing on steroids.
Correct.
I think one of the reasons I chose to work with GPI as a partner was because the most challenging recruitment is sales recruitment, because you're recruiting salespeople, and salespeople know how to sell to you. So they can tell you whatever you want to hear from them at an interview, and it's so difficult to assess capability. And that's one of the reasons having GPI as a partner helps us educate our clients to kind of mitigate risk.
Yes.
I mean, I'm really excited about the partnership where we'd be giving our clients and candidates an opportunity to get some insight on what GPI is all about, because it's such a fantastic tool and also from a self-awareness perspective, you know, having it on our website as a free assessment. You lose nothing. You spend 5 minutes to get some awareness on your capabilities. And I mean, from what we've discussed, David, and you know the challenges we've had in the past, if you want to share a little bit about these dimensions and why they're so important, and why you think as a partnership it's going to help, you know, sales professionals out there that we work with. I mean, because you're the expert there, I'm still learning from you. So I'm excited about this new venture, and I think it's going to add massive value, but not just to our candidates out there, but also to potential hiring managers to make the right decision.
And it's interesting you mentioned about the self-awareness and also the challenges of hiring salespeople. And I've spent my career, every organization I was in, we had responsibility for hiring salespeople, running sales teams of 40 and 50 people, and the nuances associated with that. I suppose I'll tell you a little story why I think the benefit of GPI. So one of the aspects, I touched on this earlier on, is this ability to design what you want. So the platform does all that. It sounds hard, but it's very easy. Tick the box, what you want to measure. And the benefit of that for an organization is that if, for example, you're hiring a salesperson for a scientific company, or if you're hiring a salesperson for a food organization, there are different attributes associated with that, and in what people are interested in, what drives them and what motivates them is very important. And so what you can do with GPI is actually analyze and specifically target the attributes that the person has outlined in their job description to say, this person has to have this, 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 and this. And we can analyze all that specifically. The other thing that I think for a sales professional, and going back to your point about, you know, why is it valuable for people to take that free test on your website? And I think that's a great initiative that Smart Talent Group is doing. The story I wanted to tell you is, if, for example, I'd like to invite your listeners and viewers to think about driving along in their car. When they're driving along, everything's going wonderful, and all of a sudden they get pulled in by a policeman. And they get a little bit nervous, and the policeman walks up to the window and says, excuse me, madam or sir, or whatever it is, did you know your rear tail light is not working? Oh, no, I didn't know my rear tail light is not working. Of course I didn't. Well, if I had known, I would have fixed it. Well, it is. We'll let you off this time, but don't let it happen again. And I like to use that analogy to describe what it is about our self-awareness, our blind spot. So if you think for a moment about most salespeople, they're self-assured, they're confident, they know who they are, or they believe they do, but they have the rear tail lights they're not aware of. And one of the benefits of them participating in the offer that you're providing to them is that they can see what are they like in terms of leadership? What are they like in terms of setting vision? How's their emotional intelligence? Is there any development that they need to do there? Is there anything that they're doing in terms of their communication style? And so getting awareness about those blind spots and your rear light not working is what this is all about. Behavioral scientists tell us that the people who know themselves the best, and we all think we know ourselves the best, but we actually don't. It's not until you take a sort of a detailed, valid, reliable assessment that explains to you in plain language who you are and what sort of things you should be developing, that you get those insights and you get that language that helps you to understand and communicate what it is about yourself that you need to turn the volume up on to be more successful, or turn the volume down on a little bit to be more successful. And that could be anything from listening skills to communication skills or whatever. And that's what these tools help you to do, is to understand what those areas are. And as you know, there's lots of support there from coaches, sales coaches, yourself, your own organization, in terms of supporting salespeople through the whole selection process and recruitment process, etc. And that these tools help to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we spoke about the dimensions. I mean, and there's a lot of sales assessments out there, right? I mean, at least with sales leaders, the one challenge we face is to educate them on the importance of using these tools, because in sales, as you know, they're a different breed. Everything needs to be done yesterday. The urgency for everything is massive. They're very big on in terms of process and structure. That's something most sales leaders lack. Like, they're great with bringing in the sales, but they haven't put in and that's where there's a lot of conflict. Every organization I talk to, there's a massive sales leaders are on a different planet, while the admin team's suffering because they haven't been informed, and there's a massive lack of communication. That comes down to just sales people and professionals being a different breed, right? It's slowly evolving, and I find sales leaders wanting to evolve and educate themselves, and it all comes down to personal growth is what I see. And I feel that businesses that have used tools like this to make hiring decisions, as we know, every hire is a risk, but what can we do as a recruitment partner to help these businesses make better decisions and help our clients and hiring managers make these decisions, because they're mostly challenged by the fact that it is time consuming. They're also very conscious about the fact that it's a cost, and so we're trying to help them at least see the value in it by introducing it to them, because there's massive value. What can we do to help you, right? If you're going to do the same thing, you're still going to have that high turnover in teams. And what's happening these days is that they're making these hiring decisions too quickly because they're scared to lose out on good talent. And what's happening is in 2 months, they're losing those people. And to make our jobs easier as recruiters, we'd rather be placing people that are going to stick, because that helps us build a better partnership. But it also takes away the pain of having to, I mean, I don't know what that stat is. What's the stats on
hiring success?
Hiring success. Yes, that's right. Is it, how do you? So
what the studies tell us, and we've got lots of studies that people want to obtain them, just contact you and we can send it to you. But traditional recruitment, what we're used to doing is where we would obtain a person's resume. That's still the norm, sending resumes in, and then we'll conduct some form of an interview with the person. They'll have been screened by quality screened by yourselves, and the organization then meets the candidates, interviews them, shortlists them, and then they need to make a decision. And the shortlisting decision without some data is usually based around gut feel and like. So it's not uncommon if when you think of a debrief on an interview maybe that you've sat in on, that we say things like, I really liked the way, Raina had worked in Coca-Cola before, because we're Pepsi-Cola. Or I really liked that Raina used to work in a dental surgery because we're selling dental products. And so we hire people based on like and gut feel. And if we for a moment think about any other, and like we're making a significant investment here, so we're probably paying out, I don't know, the guts of $100,000 for a salesperson.
Exactly, the cost of hiring. That's my stuff. Right. I mean, it's 3 times. I mean, the salary when you hire someone, right? And the cost of hiring and investing in training that individual, it's 3 times cost. So if you spend that time and then you lose that person, can you imagine? This is a minimal cost to actually invest in platforms like this to try and mitigate the risk.
Yeah, and there's no bigger tragedy, for me, not using data. The stats we have is if you do that traditional recruitment, you will get it right 25% of the time.
Wow. Okay, that's
25%. And by right, we mean a top performer, really a superstar. If you add in some objective data, we're not going to give any guarantees here that you get it right 100% of the time, but you'll increase that by 300%, threefold. You'll go from getting a top performer from 1 in 4 to 3 in 4.
Yeah.
And that's significant, And also, I think the other element that comes with your service and the tools you provide through us is that it doesn't end when the person just signs the contract. It's not just set and forget. But it's then about helping, particularly with the latest younger crew coming through. I'm speaking like an oldie now, but with the younger crew coming through, the expectations around development and growth and etc. are very important. If you look at all the recent studies from McCrindle, the number one thing they want, obviously, is young people want in sales roles is obviously remuneration. But high on the list, number 3, I think it is that growth and development. And so the tools you provide gives that.
But significance, they love to feel important. I mean, I think every Gen Y I talked to, they're already upselling their career trajectory. They want to be the CEO, the next CEO.
Correct.
They're all talking about. So how do you manage that? How do you manage that generation? And I think one of the dimensions you've got is managing generations. So how do you, and I think I'm just giving that perspective, and then having the opportunity to have an interview report at that second interview where hiring managers then have the tools to go by something, you're already forming some level of connection with that individual, like, an emotional connection, because you're getting to know that individual's likes, dislikes. You can address any red flags, and you've got some data to go by, as opposed to, you interview 4 candidates in a shortlist. How do you remember what that person likes, whether that person's going to? So I think just having some sort of data, apart from just a resume and what they're telling you,
correct,
is just so important to make better hiring decisions, and it saves them 3 times the cost. And I mean, like you said, I mean, it's a no-brainer, David. And I just feel that the opportunity to give our listeners and anyone that has used Smart Talent Group the opportunity to use GPI as an assessment through our website is just it's just going to be an introduction to why it's so valuable, because we believe in it.
Yes, yeah, and I think the point you make is right with regards to you interview 3 or 4 people. How do you remember?
How do you remember?
It's even worse than that, Irene. It can be that no matter how good we are at interviewing, and you said it earlier on, salespeople are very good at selling, right? And so, for an example, here's another story maybe. If you think for a moment that in your culture, in your organization, is fast-paced, and you meet various candidates, and they all come in and they look pretty fast-paced and everything's looking good. But how do you actually know what their working style is? You have no way of determining that. And we have dimensions that measure the person's working style. Do they like to to work really quickly. How quickly do they process information? You have no way of understanding that just by
No.
meeting somebody. That's all below the waterline, so to speak. And so the benefit of what we do is creating a model around what success looks like in your organization. We create that model, and that provides the hiring manager, the sales professional manager, the opportunity to effectively benchmark what's working successfully in their organization right now, and make sure that people they're bringing in match the critical success factors that are driving that performance in their organization. Part of as you know, part of what the tool does is easily identify those critical success factors. Going back to why I got involved with Great People Inside and why I bought it, is the little license for it anyway, is that the tool really allows you to it's taken the mystery out of psychometrics. It's made it very, everything is in plain language. You don't need to be accredited to use them. It's very easy to understand. It's practical and it's useful both when you're hiring the person and when you're onboarding the person and developing them, and even succession planning. So it goes through the whole employee life cycle. And in a tight market like we've got today, it's absolutely vital that from the moment that person signs the contract and they start in the role and you're onboarding them, that you start their first development plan there. And that's effectively what we provide you with, is as part of the package. There's no cost for that. Yeah, we provide you with the tools to help onboard that person and develop them, which is building into your and leading to your retention strategy for that person.
I agree. Definitely helps with retention. Definitely helps create a bit of structure and process and connection at the initial stage of the interview. And you're not just hiring based on what you hear, you're hiring based on some data. And hiring. And I think if you want to explain a little bit about what we're trying to create and why GPI is great. I mean, in terms of benchmarks and how we can, I mean, I've asked numerous some of our clients who've got top performers, and they pretty much tell us, hey, can you clone this individual, right? And I think GPI is the perfect platform to help us give them the best outcome there. I mean, look, nothing's 100% guarantee, but at least we can go by characteristics. We can go by, some level of what is this individual consistent in? Why exactly? What are the dimensions that this person scored X in? So I just love the fact that we can actually benchmark talent based on those who have completed the assessments before. So, I mean, just giving our listeners and anyone that wants to learn more about this assessment tool, some understanding on how we do that at GPI would be great, David.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. So what I would start by saying is that recruitment is risky. We're agreed on that. And what you need to make better decisions is objective data about the role, objective data about the person who's applying for the role, and a system whereby you can compare the two quickly and easily. As you said, hiring candidates quickly is important. And so the process that we have in Great People Inside is we are able to assess your sales team, identify the attributes that the top performers share in common. So what are those things that they share in common? And highlight those, and create a benchmark or a profile for a particular role. And that can vary. The profiles for roles can vary by region. So it might be a different type of salesperson that's working for your office in Queensland in terms of their attributes compared to the people that work close to head office, for example. And so by benchmarking and creating those models for you, you can easily compare candidates' results when they complete the assessment against that benchmark. And we actually provide you with a guideline and a percentage fit score that tells you, is this person going to be successful in this organization? And then following the process of using the behavioral questions we provide you in the interview guide, you can validate that person's results while they're sitting in front of you and really get to understand more about, what's their energy level like? Can they go hard for a long time, or do they like to recharge the batteries? One thing I find is sometimes people say, oh, I hate psych tests. I really hate them. I went for a job last week and I didn't get the job. And what I'd say to those sales professionals about the tool that we use, if your natural work style, for example, is to operate on a very fast pace,
Mm-hmm.
you like moving quickly, and you apply for a role and they put you through the assessment, and it comes back that the culture that they've got, what they currently do, it's a longer sales cycle and maybe it's not as fast paced,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not successful in the role. You haven't failed because you can't fail who you are. You haven't failed the psych test, but they've actually done you a favor because you're not going to go into an organization where you're just not going to like the job. You're not going to like that things are really moving, at a steady pace where you want to move really quickly. So it's those sorts of things that really help us to understand more about not just the role and the organization, but our fit for the role as such in terms of our own personality traits and styles.
I agree.
That makes sense.
No, I completely agree. And I think something that I've been sharing with our clients these days is that how do you know where that person, the fact that we're building some sort of data, metrics there, which that they can see whether, especially with entry level sales, right? They're hiring based on gut and the person's attitude, and they don't really have the selling skills, right? Those are the most challenging roles for businesses these days, right? And that's where the highest turnover, like you look at any SDR in any tech company, most of these sales professionals come from hospitality, and retail, and they don't really understand technology or sales process, or that sales is all about KPIs and being on the phone and all that sort of stuff. How do you know that person's got not just the tenacity, but the resilience and the ability to be successful?
So there's two things there. One is that the assessments are already normed. So for our sales dimensions, we norm them against salespeople.
Yeah.
And so those dimensions, particularly the specific sales dimensions, measure their competencies around closing sales, building client relations, being able to manage the process, etc. That's very important in terms of those competencies that they have. But it's also really important then people say, well, are they tenacious? And we have a dimension called tenacity, so you can measure tenacity. Are they resilient? We have a dimension called resilience, so you can put that into the assessment. So your clients can really determine, precisely what they want. And you can go further for them outside the data, the generic data that you're collecting on sales development representatives. For clients that frequently use you and work with you regularly, you can create specific norming, so to speak, for their own business. So every company will say to you, look, things change, our product changes, the market changes, the demands change. But what you're able to do with the GPI benchmark is based on real live data of people who've worked in their organization, successfully or otherwise, help them to understand what sort of things they are looking for precisely, so that they get the perfect fit, not the nearest fit. So they'll get an exact fit of what they're looking for. So outside that's really strong work that you're doing in terms of collecting that additional data and focusing that in based on your knowledge and your experience, doing that within an organization and doing it ongoing, it helps them to really refine and hone in on what is driving the success. Like, people are complex, human beings are complex. The world is complex that we live in, and everything is changing so quickly. Technology is changing so quickly. So you need to have a tool that can marry lots of assessments out there that will give you a benchmark that says this indicates this person will be very good at selling. But it's a generic benchmark based on, I don't know, organizations in New York, and I don't know where they get it from.
Yeah.
What you're offering them is something far more flexible and customized for their organization. Raina, it always prompts me to think about, if you think about these two wonderful companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, there's lots of examples. If you were talk to, I've often talked to some of the sales leaders, I know sales leaders from both those organizations all over the years. And what they tell me is, it's not uncommon that a person from Pepsi-Cola would be headhunted and brought to Coca-Cola, and 6 months later they crash and burn. And why is that? It's because the culture and the environment and the sign-off process and the way they do things and the interactions and the people they work with, all that whole element is it's not that they can't sell. It's just the fit, what we call fit. It's just being able to understand and establish, what does fit mean for your organization? What does fit mean for this role? And that's the service that you're providing through the tools that we
I so
provide to
agree.
you.
I mean, I've seen sales professionals be extreme, and through their career, I've kind of monitored, or I've been part of their career journey, and I'll see that they've been extremely successful in one organization. They move into a very similar solution, selling very similar solution, and they've crashed and burned. And that's such a great story.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
It's tragic, and you
It's
feel
the biggest tragedy ever.
and it affects their confidence, their mental health, everything, right? And then it's just, so I just feel tools like these can help prevent that. And you're actually doing your employees and your new hires a favor by helping them succeed, because that's your job as a hiring manager. Your job is to hire people that want to be there, that are going to be successful there, and in your organization and in your team, and are going to love it, right? And how do you assess that, right? You got to learn, you got to dig deeper, and these are the tools to help you do that. So, David, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I mean, is there anything else? What are the 3 things you urge organizations to know more about when it comes to psych testing? 3 things you have to share with businesses out there, and maybe more specific to sales, because that's where, that's what we predominantly focus on. So, I mean, you being in sales yourself, you being a sales leader, you being so vested in GPI, I'm bought. I know that it's a solution that can help a lot of organizations out there. 3 things you've got to share with these hiring managers and sales professionals out there when it comes to psych testing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the 3 most important things are, number 1, I think being able to define your success drivers. You need to understand in your organization what is driving the success. And by that, I mean quantifiably. So it's not just, oh, look, Bill is really good. He makes his sales all the time. And Tommy doesn't make his sales. I don't know where I get these names from out of the top of my head. It's my Irish background. But, but you really need to know what is driving that performance, what is it? And I like to say to people, use empirical data, their KPIs, what their, sales results is one KPI, but it's not every KPI. Maybe the fact that the person is very good at submitting their expenses regularly, or managing their travel diary effectively, or whatever that might be. So understanding what is it that makes a really top talent in your business. So define that success driver. The second thing to do then, once you've done that, is to make sure that you can quantify that, so that you can actually create a model that allows you to understand what does that look like? What are we talking, to put it into plain language, what does that mean? And that could be understanding their competencies around managing sales. It could be around their processing ability. It could be whether their motivations or interests are money, or fame and fortune, or is it something more internal? They just want to do a really good job, or are they interested in science and technology or IT, or because if you have somebody who you're able to understand what they really like to do in the work, that's very powerful. Because as you know, a person who jumps out of bed in the morning and says, I really like what I do because it's all about IT and I love IT, or I really love, I had a girl I used to work with, I won't mention her name. If she ever sees this, she'll know who she is, but she worked with me in that dental company, and she was the product manager for a tooth whitening product. And each day she'd come in, she loved tooth whitening products, and she did the selling as well. But she'd come in to me and say, I was on a chat line last night to the USA, talking to them about the next technology that's coming in tooth whitening and blah, 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 blah. And so she'd be, in her own time, she was researching about dental products so that she knew what's coming and what the technology is and what the differences were in what we were offering. So that discretionary effort that you get only comes from your own driven interest. And the third thing that I would give you, so the first thing is define your success drivers, be able to make a model out of that, which is what we can do for you. And the last thing to do then is to make sure that when you're assessing people coming in the door, that you can match them easily to that, quickly and easily and fairly. Because remember, one of the benefits of using a tool like this is it takes the like out of the hiring, and it allows you to remove that bias, because that's really important today. We know more about bias and how we tend to
Unbiased hiring, yes.
and we make our mind up about people in the first 10 seconds or something, and they're in or they're out on that first. Whereas this is giving you some objective data. So you're actually hiring people who can do the job,
100%.
not people that you like. So they're the three things I'd recommend people do.
Objective hiring, agree.
Yeah.
David, that's sensational. I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
I think this is going to add massive value. And I think if you're a hiring manager and a sales leader out there, if you haven't used GPI, you've got the opportunity now to do that through our website, and it's absolutely free. So
I just add one last point there just before we go, and that is on those free assessments that you're offering for sales professionals and sales leaders. My mother used to say to me, knowledge is no weight. Knowledge is no weight. It doesn't weigh anything. If you pick up a book and learn something today, it doesn't change anything it doesn't increase any weight on your shoulders. And so 100%. The knowledge that you will gain about yourself from doing this free, gratis, and for nothing will help you to self-manage. So it'll hold a mirror up to you, so you can look in the mirror and you'll say, oh, I didn't know my rear light was out. I better get that fixed, or I better, maybe address that. And so that information is powerful and will help to drive your success and the success of the organization you work for as well.
Exactly. And I think the reports get sent straight to your inbox. You just need to put your email address.
Everything is, it's all, look, again, it's all streamlined. It's all instantaneous. There's no delay. You're not waiting on somebody to interpret it. The platform does all that. The minute the candidate presses submit, it's in your inbox.
Yeah. And how long are these assessments usually, David? I mean,
because it's customizable, you can make it as long or as short as you wish. The minimum number of dimensions you can test is 3. So a 3-dimension assessment will take you 6 minutes to do, about 2 minutes a dimension. A 10-dimension assessment will take about 20 minutes. So the UX is very, very, very contemporary and easy.
Just a question there. I mean, there's a lot of free testing out there at the moment. Do this and you get some self-awareness on this and What's the value of using a solution like GPI? What's the difference between all those free assessments out there as opposed to GPI?
Look, there are lots of free assessments out there, and equally there are fantastic assessments. Like there's some great tools out in the market. I always think beware of the free assessment, because it's usually, in today's world, I immediately think of it's just like clickbait, and you're giving over. You have to give your information over to get the access to the test, and sometimes I think the information you get back from them, and I don't want to get into the science of the different types of assessment, what you're going to get from a validated, reliable, professional assessment, not just GPI, is you will get you'll get the hard words as well. You'll get the things that say you may tend to do this or you may tend to do that. When it's presented nicely to you, the message gets through very clearly. So the difference in, I suppose, the quality of the information that you're getting is the main issue. And also you've no real understanding about, there's a lot of scientific work that our psychologists in GPI do in terms of validation and norming and making sure that the assessments meet all the standards, and they meet all the standards for the British Psychological Association as well. So it's making sure that you've got a really recognized tool that you're using to learn about yourself.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot,
today. And look forward to collecting all this data through our website and the release of these assessments.
Yeah, great.